We're going to be talking about SERP features, how to do SERP feature analysis, and in general, how to do SERP analysis. We're also going to be covering some of the patterns related to this, even though this is going to be an impossible task, knowing how many SERP features there are, how complex the search engine result pages is, and the rendering of it. We're also going to give a few different tips on how to use machine learning to enhance your keyword research process and uncover some of the semantics behind the results or features that are ranking using machine learning models. Before anything else, what is the SERP? The SERP is the search engine results page, which is how Google serves information in response to a user query on their search engine. So the SERP is the visual representation of what Google thinks is the most satisfying way for a search query to be answered. And that would usually include organic search results, SERP features, and paid results. So this is what the search engine results page might look like. What about SERP features? What are those? SERP features are the elements of search engine result pages that aren't the traditional organic search results, or otherwise what was previously referred to as the 10 blue links. SERP features might be paid results or sponsored ads. It could be a featured snippet. People also ask suggestions, related searches, or AI overviews most recently, and so on. With different SERP features, Google is trying to do different things. For instance, they have SERP features related to ads that, of course, are the main moneymaker for them. So they have a ton of them, like top ads, bottom ads, featured like product or sponsored carousels for products, and so on. So they're trying to promote websites and getting revenue for it. They're also helping people find things, which could be answering navigational queries, like helping people find a certain business locally, or helping people discover new places while also promoting one of Google's big products, that's Google Maps. It could also be navigating users to websites via organic results, suggesting things for users to discover. So related questions, or direct links to websites, or even more information on the entity that they are doing research on, maybe some videos, branded knowledge panels as well, whenever a user is typing something that's related to a brand, in order to help bundle all of the different places where that brand could be discovered and to help with that navigational query. There are also a lot of SERP features related to DIY things, or things that you should do, and otherwise action-oriented queries, things like recipes or ratings, reading reviews, and how-to guides with step-by-step instructions. Of course, there is a ton of snippets related to commercial and transactional queries. As we can see from the example here, these are all ads for different products, but we can also see ads on the side panel as well. With some of the SERP features, Google might also be trying to refine the query by suggesting different augmentations to the query, or different ways that the query can be broadened to discover new information, or even for the query to be narrowed down by the user making a choice, like in the top left-hand example, where the user chooses what specific type of chair they want based on the brand or style and so on. Other SERP features are actually there to highlight the content that is the most popular way to address that query. For some queries, that might be a featured video with step-by-step instructions. For others, it might be a featured snippet with instructions, or even chapters from a video as well. These are meant to highlight the content that has most commonly satisfied that query, in order to ensure that the user arrives at that information as soon as possible and leaves the search engine satisfied, as opposed to searching for information for ages. And there's also SERP features that help users to actually enrich the knowledge that they have on a certain topic, and these might be things like discovering new opinions, featuring Twitter or another short form content platform. It could be discovering what questions users have asked and what is the information that is the answer to those questions, or even discovering images. You can see that there is a ton of SERP features that are currently active. These are not all of the SERP features you might find, but it could be things like local packs, hotel packs, events, top sites, or scholarly articles, or even things like Google Hotels, Google Reviews, job listings, Google Flights, and so on. There is a ton of SERP snippets that are currently being served. They're constantly evolving as new are added and some are depreciated. 800,000 experiments and ongoing quality tests are done each year to make sure that Google's results and changes to search actually make the search engine results page more useful to the people that are using it, according to Google's data. They do live traffic experiments, side-by-side experiments, and so on. They do a ton of research. If you consider how many billions of searches are being performed on a daily basis, this is a ton of data that Google has in order to validate the effectiveness of the SERP features that they're serving on the SERP. Google tests results intent alignment continuously, rigorously, using big data, and often does that in real time with live A/B tests. So my question, whenever you are doing this kind of analysis, or you're wondering whether to incorporate this kind of analysis into your semantic keyword research process, is why not tap into their research to better understand and reverse engineer what kind of content you should be creating before you even create the content. Let's talk about why SERP features are important for SEO. The first category of importance and benefits is the fact that SERP features and being featured in one of them can improve site or app traffic. That's not necessarily because some SERP features are designed to be zero-click. Being featured does not necessarily equal that your traffic is going to be improved. They can also offer increased site visibility because sometimes you might be featured alongside your traditional organic rankings, which can add an additional layer of visibility that you will achieve as a result of being featured in a SERP feature. It can improve click-through rate and the site reputation when considered for search rankings. It can diversify your traffic source because the presence of SERP features allows Google to capture a wider search intent by featuring different content formats and presenting the information with different layouts. It can capture the attention of more users and satisfy the query in different ways. That means you as a website might be introduced to new users and new demographics as well. Consider some of the user research benefits. By analyzing which SERP features appear for queries, you can uncover user preferences and intent. You can uncover preferences for content platforms, content formatting, and even preferences for domain and domain authority. You can understand the Google suggested query paths. By analyzing the SERP features, you can see places that Google is navigating users to based on the data that it has collected from other users. You can also understand the content formats that Google promotes. By analyzing the SERP features, you can see what Google suggests as the most relevant content formats to address certain queries. There are also some content improvement benefits to consider. You can do content gap analysis. By paying attention to SERP features, you can identify opportunities by comparing your content with competitors' ranking in the SERP features. You can also focus on keywords that trigger traffic endorsing SERP features if you do have the data to validate that appearance in some SERP features relates to higher traffic to your website. You can also pinpoint some areas where competitors dominate and create strategies to outperform them if they have a strategy focused on SERP feature placements. You can also diversify the content formats that you're serving by aligning with the SERP features that you're seeing, as well as if you know that there are some trends related to seasonality and certain SERP features being featured on the Google search engine result page more often as a result of holidays or seasons and so on. There's a ton of benefits related to market research that you can get by paying attention to SERP features. The presence of certain SERP features can indicate evolving search trends. For instance, an event developing could trigger the news SERP feature. By monitoring the shift in SERP feature prevalence, you can stay ahead of your competitors and make changes quicker. Let's look at some patterns to get a clearer picture. There are patterns that describe how Google creates the direct answers or otherwise zero-click content for some SERP snippets. This pattern on the screen right now describes a system focused on improving the quality of short answers that search engines provide. It introduces a method for generating and scoring these short answers based on multiple sources rather than relying on a single top-ranked result. By searching for consensus in the data that is featured, they're able to provide a more robust final response to a query. And some of the factors that they consider are, like I mentioned, consensus on the passages that are being used, the quality, the answers from the data that they get, and the accuracy score. The accuracy score controls the decision to display this short answer based on all the other factors mentioned. So this describes a system that dynamically assembles and presents diverse content types, such as text, images, and videos on the search engine results. This approach enhances the SERP by integrating various content formats and aiming to provide users with a more comprehensive and relevant set of search results. Other patterns describe how Google handles duplication, for instance, for product listings that they feature in the SERP. This patent outlines methods for identifying and reducing near duplicate product listings in the search results. This enhances the search engine results page by minimizing redundancy. Of course, there are patents that describe changes in the SERP snippets and features that are shown as a result of how queries are refined with the aim to better address the user search intent. One important thing to note is that for almost any featured snippet, there is an associated patent explaining how the underlying system works. The graph on the left you see on the screen is about the from sources across the web SERP snippet. As an example, it shows how Google chooses eligible content items, combines them into one search result, and what kind of data and sources they consider to build that SERP snippet. Google uses patterns and queries to scale the use of certain SERP features. In this article that I wrote for Search Engine Land a while back, I talked about the evolution of one SERP snippet. This is the from sources across the web SERP snippet. In 2017, Google started experimenting with carousels, pulling data for organizations, and then experimenting with list includes features for list-based content, and finally expanded from sources across the web SERP snippets, which is what we have today. But the interesting part is that they have now scaled the use of this SERP snippet across a ton of different query patterns. So it will rank for things like best date spots in city, best small towns near city, best software type for a use case. It could be things like checklists, like YouTube checklist. It could be things like type of software, like SEO software, analytics software. It could be for ideas, so date ideas for couples in Dallas. It could be things like what to do in certain location. It could be for tools as well. Most interestingly, they've also started expanding it into medical queries. I've seen things like signs of disease or burnout, diabetes medication, or remedies for certain issues or symptoms. It's important to note that for this particular SERP snippet, there isn't a ton of diversity in the sources that Google considers. In most cases that I've reviewed, some sources that don't get an organic ranking might get a ranking in this SERP snippet. The competition for a click in one of these SERP snippets is very brutal. But these might be an example of a low-click or zero-click SERP snippet. Let's now talk about how to practically analyze SERP features for query semantics as part of your keyword research process. I have different approaches for you to go through and also some practical exercises. Most of the code, guidance, or templates that you might need to execute the things mentioned here are either already publicly available on my website on ML for SEO, but this is a list of things that can absolutely improve the way that you consider features and moving them from something that's typically not considered at all whenever we're doing keyword research or considered at a very minimum degree to something that is actually quite important for understanding the kind of content to build and prioritize for each of our topic clusters and content formats. The first approach is to categorize SERP features by the intent they satisfy. Here, the suggestion is to create a categorization that maps each SERP feature with an intended intent category. And that could be, for instance, FAQs and AI overviews being informational intent searches, product listings and shopping panels being considered transactional, reviews and from sources across the web being considered commercial, knowledge panels for navigational, and so on. You can also create an even deeper categorization to indicate whether the SERP feature is click promoting or zero click. Another approach is to analyze SERP features that appear for your keywords and identify the content formats they are likely to rank for each SERP feature and for each keyword, to also identify the commonly ranked content platforms or websites for each SERP feature for each keyword. You can also blend SERP feature analysis with entity analysis and n-gram analysis. The idea here is to identify with granularity the competitors that rank for prominent SERP features in your keyword universe and analyze their URLs, titles, and other metadata to uncover patterns in title structure, entity mentions, or even user personas targeted. So for instance, if they always title their articles like Beginner's Guide to, or even Expert Insights to, or Ultimate Guide to, and other title patterns by doing n-gram analysis. Another approach is to identify keywords for which there are SERP features associated with query refinement and query paths. The idea here is to identify which keywords serve features that are associated with query path suggested by Google, or which prompt the user to refine their queries. And then you can examine the suggestions in those particular SERP features to understand user intent and to also understand how users might refine or expand their queries. You can create a map of these query paths linking the initial keywords to the keywords that are presented in those SERP features, and identify any patterns in the user exploration to then inform your own content strategy and the topical clusters that you're creating. And that can also inform your internal linking strategy as well. And then you can also bring machine learning APIs into your SERP analysis. You can do entity analysis with Google Natural Language API to analyze titles and meta descriptions. You can do n-gram identification of the ranked titles at a query level to uncover preferred title formats and patterns of the ranked content for each query. You can do labeling on ranked domains into search intent groups by using an LLM or by labeling with SBERT. You can do scraping and classification of ranked content with Google Natural Language API, and you can also do sentiment analysis specifically for branded searches or commercial investigation searches where your brand is mentioned to uncover whether there is publisher bias against or for your brand. Here are some examples of the data that you will get as a result of running some of these analyses. For the entity analysis, for instance, here's an example of how we might visualize the most common entities mentioned in the SERPs meta descriptions and the URL meta descriptions with the most entities in them. You can also map entity sentiment for the entities in your database. You can create visualizations to better explore entities in relation to metrics like domain ranking or other metrics related to your keyword universe. When it comes to patterns in the titles, using an n-gram analysis, you can see that most of the titles for a certain query might be containing a what is pattern. Another pattern that we can see here would be best cloud or a best cloud application. You can also do sentiment analysis. You can plot the sentiment score and the magnitude of titles, and that could be on an entity level, but it can also be done not only for titles, but for meta descriptions, and it can also be done at a domain level so that you could see whether there are certain keywords where the sentiment is always negative and what are the domain names associated with the keywords that always publish negatively for your brand, for instance. You can do the same for analyzing the keywords where your brand is mentioned in a positive light. In terms of recommended resources, I also highly recommend my nearly hour-long video that teaches you how to do machine learning-enabled SERP analysis and the associated blog post and Looker Studio template so that you can get some of these visualizations yourself for the dataset that you are working with. Let's conclude what we learned. SERP features are snippets that are meant to improve the user experience on Google search engine result page by helping users to discover more information or more content platforms and to satisfy their search needs. Google constantly experiments, running hundreds of thousands of experiments each year on SERP features, sunsetting some formats and releasing new ones all the time. So it is a very dynamic component to incorporate in your research process. There is a patent for nearly any SERP snippet that you see where it is described where Google pulls the data from. Google rarely does original research or produces content for these snippets. Most of the time, they just aggregate information and present it in a different style and format to test whether this new format will encourage users to click or improve their user satisfaction with the quality of the information presented on the search engine results page. Incorporating SERP analysis into your keyword research process is a vital step in understanding not only your organic competitors, but also the landscape of the search intent that Google is trying to satisfy via the various SERP snippets. The presence of these SERP snippets is the clear tell sign that users have in the past engaged or have been satisfied with those snippets being there. Hopefully this has been useful for you. I encourage you to do the additional practical exercises that were mentioned here. Thank you so much for watching.